are terrified of introductions, but I promise introductions in language analysis are super easy and they are very, very formulaic. Just invest, I don't know, 15 minutes in making your own list of these, and I promise you will never ever have to think about introductions ever again in all of year 12 for language analysis. Introductions are actually a very, very easy thing in language analysis. Don't worry. So, firstly, I've always learned from my awesome teacher that in introductions, the only thing you actually need is to identify what the issue and the contention are. Some teachers though want you to include audience, tone, writer, the name of the article, the name of the newspaper where it was published, the type of text it is, so like an opinion piece, a speech, etc., the style of the text, and all of these billion other things. Apparently in the exam, the only two things you actually need to include in the introduction are the contention and the issue. So the only things you actually need to include for the exam are the issue and the contention. You don't need to include anything else whatsoever. But your teachers do control your SAC marks. So if your teachers want you to include everything else, that's fine. Do include it. It will be useful anyway. But in the exam, they know all of these things. They don't really need you to include them, and these things are like included in the background information anyway of the exam itself. So it's not like you're you're inventing anything or you're saying anything new. So it's a bit pointless. But if your teacher wants you to include it, do include it, and it is a good learning experience. But in the exam itself, these are the only two things that you actually need. Knowing that these are the only two things that you actually need, how do you go about writing an introduction? So my first sentence for the, so I only ever had 3 sentences for the introduction. I tried to keep it as short and as sharp as possible, and I tried to include nice tone words. So my first sentence would be something about the issue, my second sentence would be something about the contention, and my third sentence would be a beautiful sentence about the tone that the writer used. So, there are some example sentences here for issue and example sentences here for contention, and we'll have a separate video on tone where you'll learn a billion sentences that you can use for tone, and you just combine these 3 sentences and that's it. That's your introduction. Done, dusted, that's it. So in the Language Analysis Study Guide, you'll find in the introduction section on page 5 that there are example sentences that you can use. In the categories of issue, contention, and tone. It's plagiarism if you steal those exact same sentences, because technically you can't take more than 3 words of what someone else has written. So you've got to rewrite them for yourself, and you've got to rewrite sentences for yourself, and discover sentences that you like and create your own list. So make sure you create your own list of sentences for issue, of sentences for contention, and of sentences for tone, and create your own A4 sheet of sentences that you like, and include that in your copy of the Language Analysis Study Guide. And every time you write an introduction, use those sentences, and yeah, you never ever have to think about introductions again. Just invest time in making that A4 sheet for yourself, and that's it. Every single time you need to write an introduction for language analysis, just take 1 sentence, second sentence, third sentence, and that's it. Your introduction is done. It's really not hard at all. That's all you have to do. If you have one of those teachers who also wants an additional sentence covering these things, that's fine. Make it 4 sentences. 1 sentence covering these things, 1 sentence covering issue, 1 sentence covering contention, 1 beautiful sentence on tone, and that's it. You've got your introduction. So, to recap, introductions are super easy in language analysis. The only things you actually have to include are issue and contention. And so I have example sentences for issues, example sentences for contentions, and then a third sentence for the tone. I try to keep my introductions as short and sharp as possible, and try to keep them to the point and simple. There's one more thing that I wanted to mention that I forgot. So let's. So make sure that you don't plagiarize. Plagiarism is very, very dangerous, and you can get a zero mark, and I don't want to put you in that situation. So make sure that you be inspired by these phrases, but don't use any of them in your essays because they're online. Your teacher can find them and find that you've plagiarized. Make sure that you edit them and don't take more than 3 consecutive words. If you take more than 3 consecutive words, it's counted as plagiarism. So example phrases for issue. So this the issue sentence is usually the first sentence that I would write in my introduction. So at the crescendo, crescendo means peak, at the crescendo of the contentious debate regarding abortion, Bobson writes, publishes his opinion piece of the Age, contending that blah blah blah. The issue of abortion has engendered considerable controversy in the media, blah blah blah. The issue was met with a wide spectrum of opinion, that blah blah blah. The issue provided impetus for ABC's enthusiastic and optimistic letter, blah blah blah. So these are example phrases of how you can identify the issue. Anytime you find a word that you like, just add it to your list and try to use it in your language analysis essays. And now, example phrases for contention. So the contention is the writer's opinion on the issue. So the writer contends in an enthusiastic style that blah blah blah. ABC scathingly expressed his criticism. He couched his contention that blah blah blah, or his stance that abortion should be banned in a primarily censuring and disparagingly aggravated tone. Try not to use the word tone. Ironic that I've used it. I'll cover that in the tone video. The issue was met with the ardent and forceful disparagement of ABC. ABC propounds in unequivocal terms that blah blah. So propounds means advocates for or says. So this is saying that this is his contention, but without actually using the word contention, which is a very nice way of doing it. So it's pretty much saying that ABC propounds or contends in unequivocal terms that blah blah. Unequivocal means like certain. Equivocal is when you're unsure and when you're hesitant. So unequivocal means you're absolutely certain that blah blah. So I am unequivocal that uniforms should be worn in schools. So it's like direct and certain. These tone words we'll cover later in the tone video. So hopefully that makes sense. So introductions are very, very simple in language analysis. They are super easy to master. They are not something that you should be afraid of. They're very, very formulaic. Just invest time in making your own list of introduction sentences that you can recycle every single time you write a language analysis essay. So on page 5 of the Language Analysis Study Guide, you'll find language analysis, you'll find all these sentences for introductions. Try to be inspired by them to make your own sentences. Invest 15 minutes in making your own sentences and use them every single time you write a language analysis introduction, and you'll never have to think about introductions ever again. I hope that made sense. Feel free to email me if it didn't, and I'll try to explain further. Good luck with introductions. So I have an example introduction here, just to make sure that that point makes sense about introductions. So this is an actual example of one of the introductions that I wrote in Year 12 for a sample text analysis piece that our teacher gave us. So the local council's proposal for all homes to install hot water panels was met with a wide spectrum of opinion. To install solar hot water panels. So this is the issue. So the local council proposed that all homes have to install solar hot water panels. And then the sentence that I used, which you'll remember from previously, was what was met with a wide spectrum of opinion. That was one of my example sentences, and I wanted to use that one for here, so I did. So this is the issue, the council's decision. The local businessman, Bob Walsh, who was the writer of this piece, scathingly expressed his criticism of the issue. He couched his contention that frivolous solar panels should be replaced by the more efficient and environmentally friendly nuclear power in a primarily censuring and disparaging style. So the first sentence gives us the issue, the local council's proposal for all homes to install solar hot water panels. solar hot water panels, so that's the issue. And then the second one, the second sentence, gives us a bit of the contention. So the local businessman Bob Walsh scathingly expressed his criticism of the issue, so we know that he's saying no, so that's his contention. He doesn't like the idea of solar hot water panels. He couched his contention, and then I actually say what his contention is. He couched his contention that frivolous solar panels should be replaced by the more efficient and environmentally friendly nuclear power. So this is his contention in a primarily censuring and disparaging style. So this is his tone. So the second and third sentences are sort of merged together, the contention and tone sentences, but it gives you an example of what I mean. So the first sentence has the issue, the second sentence kind of has the contention, and the third sentence has the tone. So this is an actual example of an introduction that I wrote in Year 12. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll give you another example as well. Okay, and this is the second example of an introduction. So during Bicycle Week, at the crescendo of the media's coverage of the benefits of bicycle riding, Fred Harrington, president of Bicycling Australia, published his opinion piece in the Australian newspaper. So Bicycle Week or bicycle riding is kind of the issue. So this is what triggered the writing of this piece, the issue of bicycles and you having a week, an advocacy week for the use of more bicycles. He outlines with an enthusiastic and inviting demeanour. So demeanour is a word that you can use as an alternative for tone. It means the way you present yourself or the way you come across. It's a very, very good alternative to tone or style or manner. He outlines with an enthusiastic and inviting demeanour that bicycle riding is a feasible and enjoyable alternative to using petrol-requiring vehicles. So this second sentence is the contention sentence. So that's his contention. His optimistic, extolling style is likely to influence many environmental and lifestyle-conscious readers. This is just the third sentence, just for the sake of it, that has his tone. And yeah, there you go. You have your short, sharp introduction, one issue sentence, one contention sentence, and one tone sentence. The issue sentence, I used the crescendo word, which you will remember from the start of the video. So this was one of my example sentences that I liked and that I used. He outlined with an enthusiastic and inviting demeanour. In the second sentence, actually, I didn't use any sample sentences. I just wrote his contention. You can say he contends with an enthusiastic and inviting demeanour. You can say whatever you like. And then the third sentence was just the tone sentence, as I mentioned before. So introductions, very, very formulaic. 3 sentences, issue, contention, tone. And if your teacher wants a 4th sentence on all of the other things, include that as well. Introductions, you should never stress about them. They should always be very, very straightforward. And yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Good luck.